She never told anyone this, not her therapist, not her best friend, not even the voice recorder she kept by her bed for midnight thoughts. But the truth lived in the quiet moments. The way her breath hitched when he walked past her in the kitchen, phone in hand, eyes glued to a screen not hers. The way she'd rehearse sentences in the shower, only to swallow them whole by dinner. The way she measured love not in words, but in how long she could wait, until he finally looked up. He knew you would stay. That's why he took you for granted. It doesn't happen all at once. It doesn't crash down like a betrayal caught red-handed in a text message or a late-night Uber receipt. No, this is quieter, slower, like rust on a hinge you keep oiling, hoping it'll stop groaning. You don't notice it's broken until the door falls off. Claire first noticed it on a Tuesday. Rain tapped the windows of their Brooklyn apartment like impatient fingers. She'd cooked risotto, the kind that takes 40 minutes of stirring, of standing still in one place while the world moves on outside. She set the table with 2 wine glasses, lit the unscented candle she knew he liked, nothing overpowering, he'd said once, months ago, and waited. He walked in at 8:47 p.m., said, "Smells good," without looking at the food, shed his coat, dropped his keys in the bowl clack, then opened his laptop at the breakfast bar and scrolled. She stood there, wooden spoon still in hand, sobbed, steam rising between them. "Dinner's ready," she said, soft, careful, not an accusation, not yet. "Yeah, just give me 5, he murmured. "Work thing?" She stirred the pot again, not because it needed it, risotto waits for no one, but because her hands had nowhere else to go. That night, she ate alone at the table. He ate later, standing, one forkful at a time between Slack notifications. It wasn't anger she felt. Not yet. It was a colder thing. Recognition. Like noticing for the first time that the thermostat had been set too low for months and you just learned to wear sweaters indoors. She replayed the last year in her head, not in scenes, but in shifts. The shift when good morning texts became sporadic, then optional. The shift when "let's talk about this" turned into "I'm tired. Can we do it tomorrow?" They never did. The shift when she stopped mentioning a promotion at work because his congratulations came with a distracted, "Yeah, babe, that's great." And she realized she was performing joy for someone who wasn't in the audience. She'd always prided herself on being the steady one, the calm in his storms, the one who remembered his mother's birthday, packed his lunch when he had back-to-back meetings, held his hair back when tequila won. She wasn't the dramatic girlfriend, the one who threw things or demanded declarations. She was the safe harbor. But harbors don't get thanked. They just get used. Psychologists call it relational asymmetry when effort, attention, and emotional labor flow in one direction. But Claire didn't need the term. She felt it in her bones. The slow erosion of reciprocity. Once, after a fight, a rare, sharp one over something trivial, like whether to adopt a dog, he'd said, "You're too understanding. It makes me lazy." She'd laughed it off. Better than being with someone who doesn't care at all. He'd kissed her forehead and said, "Exactly." She only understood the trap later. He wasn't praising her patience. He was naming the leverage. You see, love isn't broken by cruelty alone. Sometimes it's dismantled by certainty, by the quiet confidence that someone won't leave, no matter how little they're given. He knew she wouldn't walk out over forgotten anniversaries. He knew she'd forgive the canceled plans again because the client meeting ran late. He knew she'd soothe his stress, but never demand space for her own grief when her father got sick. Why? Because she'd proven it. Over and over. Every time she chose loyalty over resentment, every time she softened her voice instead of raising it, every time she told herself, "He's just stressed. He weighs uses. This phase will pass." She handed him a blank check and he kept cashing it. One evening, she found herself standing in front of the full-length mirror in their bedroom, still in work clothes, makeup half smudged. He was in the living room, laughing with friends on a group call, his real laugh, the one that crinkled the corners of his eyes, the one she used to think was hers. She watched her own reflection and asked quietly, "What would it take for me to leave?" The answer didn't come in a list of deal breakers, infidelity, abuse, lies. It came as a feeling, a threshold of invisibility. The moment she realized she'd rather be alone than be unseen beside someone. That night, she didn't confront him. She didn't cry. She opened her notes app and typed one sentence. "I don't miss him. I miss who I was when I believed he saw me." The next week, her coworker Mia invited her to a silent meditation retreat in upstate New York, 3 days. No phones, no talking, just forest and stillness. He rolled his eyes when she told him. "You? Silent? For 3 days?" "Yeah," she said. "I think I need to hear myself again." He shrugged. "Cool. I'll probably binge that new series." She packed her bag slowly, folded 2 sweaters, a journal, her grandmother's locket, the one she hadn't worn in years because he'd once said, "It's kinda old-fashioned." She put it on before leaving. In the car, as the city skyline receded behind her, she felt it not relief, not yet, but the first deep breath in years that didn't come with an apology attached. That retreat didn't fix her, but it gave her back witness. She sat cross-legged on a wooden platform, dew soaking into her jeans, listening to wind move through pines. No one expected her to be wise. No one needed her to mediate, soothe, translate. She just was. On the second morning, a facilitator handed out a writing prompt. Write a letter to the part of yourself you abandoned to keep someone else comfortable. Her pen moved faster than her thoughts. "Dear quiet Claire, I'm sorry I let him silence you not with shouting, but with waiting. I let him train you to shrink, to swallow your questions, to mistake endurance for strength. You weren't too much. You were just too honest for a love that preferred comfort over connection. I'm coming back for you." She folded the paper and tucked it into her locket. Back in the city, everything looked the same, but she didn't. He greeted her with a distracted hug, already talking about a server outage at work. She smiled, nodded, made tea, but inside something had shifted like a tectonic plate grumbling beneath calm ground. She didn't explode. She didn't leave. Not yet. Instead, she stopped compensating. When he forgot to ask how the retreat was, she didn't fill the silence with a summary. When he vented for 20 minutes and didn't ask how she was, she said, "Actually, I had something I wanted to tell you," and waited. He blinked. "Oh, yeah, go ahead." But his phone buzzed. He glanced at it. She watched his attention fracture and said nothing. That night, she lay beside him, listening to his even breaths, and realized, he doesn't know he's losing me. Because I've been gone for months and he never noticed I left. The real heartbreak wasn't his indifference. It was the dawning horror that she had participated in her own erasure. She'd mistaken sacrifice for love. She'd believed that if she just loved harder, he'd eventually meet her halfway. But love isn't a math problem you can solve by adding more of yourself. It's a shared language, and if only one person's speaking, it's not a conversation. It's a monologue dressed as a duet. The breaking point wasn't dramatic. No slammed doors, no tearful ultimatums. Just a Tuesday again 2 months later. He came home late. She was on the couch, not waiting, not angry reading a novel she'd bought for herself, cover creased from use. He dropped his bag. "Hey? Hey?" Silence. He opened the fridge. "What's for dinner?" "I had soup earlier." "Oh." Pause. "You didn't wait?" I wasn't hungry at 7. He looked at her not with annoyance, but with something closer to confusion, like a child discovering a toy no longer obeys voice commands. You're different, he said finally. She closed her book. The Argonauts by Maggie Nelson. She'd underlined a line earlier. Love is not a constellation of behaviors. It is the willingness to be changed by the other. I am, she said. I've been different for a while. He sat across from her, elbows on knees. For the first time in months, he made eye contact, really looked at her. Did I do something? The old Claire would have softened, would have said, no, it's not you, it's me, and buried the truth under layers of reassurance. But the woman on the couch who'd sat in silence long enough to hear her own pulse again shook her head. It's not one thing, she said. It's 1,000 little things. You stopped seeing me, and I stopped reminding you I was here. He frowned. That's not fair. I love you. Do you? She asked, not coldly, but with genuine curiosity. Or do you love the idea of me, the version that never asks for more than you're willing to give? He opened his mouth, closed it. She stood, walked to the window. Outside, a couple argued in hushed, urgent tones on the sidewalk, hands waving, then clasping, then pulling apart. A cycle she knew well. I used to think love was about staying, she said. Now I think it's about choosing every day. And you stop choosing me, not in big ways, in the small ones where love actually lives. He looked down. I didn't realize. I know, she said. And she did know. That was the tragedy. He wasn't malicious. He was certain. Certain she'd absorb the weight. Certain her love was an infinite resource. Certainty is the enemy of care. A study from the University of Georgia found that perceived partner commitment is one of the strongest predictors of taking a relationship for granted. When one person feels too sure the other won't leave, attentiveness declines. Not because they discovered they stop valuing the person, but because the brain treats security like oxygen, vital, but easy to ignore until it's gone. He hadn't decided to neglect her. He'd unlearned her, and she'd taught him how. They didn't break up that night. They tried counseling. He made efforts, texted more, planned a weekend trip, even cooked dinner once. But it felt like watching someone imitate a language they'd forgotten how to speak. The grammar was there, the accent was off. She realized healing isn't about fixing the other person. It's about no longer mistaking their repair for your return. One evening, after a session where he'd said, I just need more time to get back to how we were, she went for a walk alone, ended up at the riverfront, watching the sunset bleed gold over the water. A woman jogged past, stopped short, and said, Wow, that light, it's like the sky is forgiving the day. Claire smiled. Yeah, like it's saying, you were hard, but I still held you. They stood in silence for a moment, two strangers sharing awe. In that pause, Claire understood something vital. She didn't want to be forgiven for being difficult. She wanted to be witnessed for being real. He couldn't give her that not because he wouldn't try, but because he'd built a life with the idea of her. Not the woman who'd grown while he wasn't looking. The end came gently. She sat him down on a Sunday morning, sunlight pooling on the floor between them. I love who I became with you, she said, but I can't love who I became for you. He cried not the performative tears of guilt, but the quiet sobs of loss. She held his hand, not as a partner, as a witness. They packed her things over 3 weekends, no drama, just boxes, photos sorted with care, a shared playlist split in 2. The last night he handed her a small wrapped box. Inside, her grandmother's locket polished, the chain repaired. I kept forgetting how beautiful it was, he said, until I saw you wearing it again. She fastened it around her neck, The metal was warm. "Thank you," she said. "Not for the locket, for the honesty." A year later, she's sitting at a cafe in Portland. Yes, she moved steam rising from her matcha, journal open. She's writing a book now. Not a memoir. A guide for women rebuilding after quiet losses, the kind no one throws a pity party for. Her phone buzzes. A message from him, rare but occasional. Not romantic, just human. "Saw a dog today that looked exactly like the one we never adopted. Made me laugh. Hope you're well." She types back, "I am. Truly." And she is. Not because she's over him, but because she's with herself now. If you feel this, like the video so more women see this. Comment "I'm healing" if you're going through this too. Subscribe for more stories like this. The deepest betrayal isn't being left. It's being made to believe your presence was a given so obvious, so reliable, that it no longer required reverence. But love that doesn't choose you daily isn't love. It's convenience with a heartbeat. And you are not a backup plan. You are not a safety net. You are not a woman to be returned to when the world gets loud. You are a life, a voice, a boundary drawn in kindness, not cruelty. He knew you would stay. But the bravest thing you'll ever do is realize finally that staying was never the victory. Leaving yourself behind was the loss. Coming home to yourself, that's the triumph.